Guess what Santa got me for Christmas? Very good for looking into the dead wax. And they even give it a nice little bag. Very thoughtful of them. Well, this is going to be my last video of 2022, and I'm just wondering what to do with this cup of coffee. And I did say in my last video that I was going to do a video about my final trip to Tokyo this year. And I will do that in this video. It's a bit of a bumper edition, this final video of the year, because before I do the Tokyo trip finds, I want to tell you about another lot of records, big stack of records I bought online. And it's a story of elation initially, turning to dejection, and ultimately resignation. So let me tell you a little bit about that story, what happened, and I'll show you some of the records I got and what happened. So I got a pile of records, 22 LPs I think it was, online. Not much information on there. So I took a gamble because there were 4 albums in the set which had quite rare obies, and I wanted to get hold of those. Anyway, so I got the box, opened them up, and the covers looked quite clean. So I thought this could be a good day. And the first record that I looked at was this one here, and this is actually a Japan only compilation, the great hits of Elvis, and it was actually the last record released on Victor, sorry, the last LP, Elvis LP, released on Victor, the last new album on Victor in October 1968. So I looked inside the cover and very happy to find it was really clean, because a lot of Japanese gatefold covers can get pretty stained on the inside because of the humidity. And something else was on the inside, and it was a rather nice red obi there that you can see on the left. So I thought, great, this is going to be good. I'm already 1 obi up. Didn't know that this one had an obi. So I got to the next album. It was another double album. Same thing happened. I opened up the gatefold cover, and there was an obi in there which I didn't know anything about. Wasn't expecting. So I was 2-0 up after 2 albums. Very happy. Then I got to this album here, the Flaming Star album. Very nice clean cover there. So I thought, well, it's not a gatefold, but let's just have a look on the inside. Maybe there's an obi. Guess what? It was. Look at that beautiful red obi from 1969. And not only that, but there was actually another piece of paper on the inside of the cover, which I'll show you later. Something which came with the album. Not unique to the album, kind of a generic insert that came with albums at the time. I'll show you that later on. It's quite interesting. So I thought, anyway, let's take a look at some of these records then. And I pulled out the LP, and it was in one of these paper and plastic inner sleeves that they used at the time. And I looked at the record in the inner sleeve, and it wasn't like it is now. I could see that it was stuck to the inner sleeve, and I thought, oh no, I know what that means. So I peeled it off, pulled it out, dreading what I was going to find. Have a look at this. Let's see if I can tilt it so you can see it. Is that it? Oh, there we go. I think it's there you can see it. Oh, okay, I've got it now. Look at that bag rash. Yeah, both sides as well. Just covered in that stuff. So I was very disappointed. And then I thought, oh no, what if they're all like that? So I started going back through, the other albums that I'd checked. And all of them were like that. So I got another one. Here's another one I had in that set, Elvis for Everyone. Looked inside the cover. Really nice, clean gatefold cover. Hard to find these mid-60s gatefolds in such clean condition. Pulled out the LP. What do you know? Completely covered in bag rash, just like the one we just looked at. Here's another one. This was one of the ones that, one of the reasons why I bought the set for LP fans only. This is a 1970 pressing, and it's still got its very rare obi there. Opened it up, had a look at the record. You've guessed it. Covered in bag rash. Probably the most painful one was this one here. This is such a night on Victor. I've talked about this album before. It's the Elvis is Back album, but in Japan they kind of mess around a little bit with it, changed the title, moved a couple of songs around, put side 2 songs on side 1, and so on. Immaculate cover. Got the record out. Side 2. Look at that. Perfect. I thought, maybe we're getting somewhere now. My luck's turning. And I turned over to side 1. And I thought, oh yeah, it's okay. Everything's okay. And then maybe if I can show it. There you go. Just at the top there. There's this little strip of bag rash at the top there. Just through tracks 1 and 2. And by now it was also occurring to me that all these records were in immaculate condition, like no spindle wear, no marks whatsoever. They look like they've just been sitting in the covers for 50 years or so. Probably never played. There were a few albums that were not like that. Of the 22 albums, 4 were just perfect. 3 of them were Japanese, the other one was an import. And I'm not the kind of person that says things like typical or just my luck, but I couldn't help thinking that way when I saw the 4 albums that were in perfect condition, because, like I said, one of them was an import. The other 3 Japanese ones are all among the most common Japanese records out there. For instance, there was a copy of That's the Way It Is in immaculate condition, the biggest selling Elvis Japanese record of all time. And there was also a copy of Elvis's Golden Story Volume 1 in perfect condition. Probably the biggest selling Elvis Japanese compilation of all time. I'm not complaining, it was really nice to have them, and they both had obies, especially Golden Story Volume 1. It can be quite difficult to find with the obi. And here's another one that was also in immaculate condition. Blue Hawaii. Again, not complaining. I mean, that's a beautiful cover, and it is actually the rare 1750 yen version. But I couldn't help noticing that the 3 records that were all in perfect condition were also 3 of the most common Japanese records. So, as I said, there was an import in there as well. What could it have been? The first edition of the Elvis Presley album, Rock and Roll No. 2 on HMV, Chicken of the Sea edition of Aloha from Hawaii. Nope, it wasn't any of those. It was a Camden copy of You'll Never Walk Alone. Now, I'm not mocking this album, don't get me wrong. I'm actually glad to have it now that I've come to terms with what happened, because I didn't have a copy of this on Camden, only a Pickwick version. But I looked inside the cover and there was no inner sleeve there. And I thought, this is going to be wrecked. But it wasn't, it was in mint condition. And Camden did release quite a few albums that way. I've actually opened one myself from sealed to find no inner sleeve in there. But it was as though the record was mocking me, you know. It was like, this record didn't even have an inner sleeve, and it's perfect. All the other records did, and most of them are trashed. But there were some good things to come out of that deal, and that's what I want to go into now. So I've already mentioned that I found a few obies in there that I wasn't expecting. And I did find another couple. There was a Love Letters album with the obi, with the second version without the envelope text. That's a very rare one. And I also got a copy of From Elvis in Memphis with the bonus photo. But the best one of all, this was the biggest surprise, was this album, which, again, I didn't think it had the obi, but I looked inside the cover and there it was, just sitting there. Look at that beauty. Gold Records Volume 4. Original Victor pressing, 1968, with its dark blue obi. Just in great condition. So those were the positives. So that's what I mean about being resigned to what happened, because on balance, it was probably fair enough, you know, the price that I paid for them, because I did get a few extra obies out of the deal, which I wasn't expecting. And the funny thing about those records is I put one on the turntable to see how it sounds, because sometimes when you get records like that with the bag rash plastic migration, they can sound awful. Sometimes they just sound a little bit hissy, but in the case of these records, they don't. They sound absolutely perfect. So there's not much I can do with them except, keep them as very nice sounding playing copies. Anyway, that brings me on to Tokyo, when I went to Tokyo yesterday, because I did actually find some good copies of those albums, some nice cheap copies of those albums, so I can actually replace some of the ones that have the plastic migration. So I found a copy of this one here, 1970 copy of for LP fans only. It's exactly the same pressing. I've checked the record itself, so that was a bit of good news. And I also found another copy of Flaming Star. This one is also the first edition from July '69, so that's another one that I can change over. And I also found another copy of Elvis for Everyone from 1965, so that's another one that I can switch over. This cover is not quite as good as the one that has the Bag Rash LP in it. And I did find some other things in Tokyo. I haven't forgotten about that piece of paper that came with the Flaming Star album. I'll show you that later. I got another Taiwanese LP. I haven't checked my Asian vinyl book yet to see the details about this LP, but it's a double album. And there are quite a few early 70s songs on there, such as You Don't Have to Say You Love Me and I Really Don't Want to Know. So it seems to date from about 1971. And on the inside, it's just got all the lyrics in English and Chinese. I'll show you one of the records. They're both the same. They're not colored vinyl. They're on the Holy Hawk label, the famous Holy Hawk label. They need a bit of a cleanup, but they look to be in nice condition. So that was that. I also went to the HMV shop in Tokyo. They actually sell used stuff in the HMV. And I found this copy of Gold Records Volume 2. It's an RCA pressing from the early 70s, 1971. It's quite a rare one, is this. Very nice condition. I also found, this is a 1985 issue of Gold Records Volume 4. You can see it's got the 50th anniversary. So I think the covers are left over from the 1977 issue. It's got the same catalogue number as the 1977 issue. But the record was pressed later than 77. It's got some funny stuff going on in the run out areas. And I also found this really, really nice mono copy of King Creole from 1962. And another very nice copy from the same 63, this was released, right? Yeah, 1963, World's Fair in stereo. You often find this album with a little punch hole in the bottom, but this one doesn't have a punch hole, which is good. And last but not least, I got this one because it had an insert with it. Special offer insert. So I've got two pieces of paper to show you in a moment. Okay, this is Gold Records Volume 2. This is from late 1962. It's not the very first pressing, but it's pretty close. And it's on the Black Victor label. This is one of those records where if you turn it up to the light, it looks green. And they only did those for about 2 years. All right, so let me show you. First of all, I'll go back to the Flaming Star album and show you the little insert that came with that LP, because I've never seen this before. There you go. There's nipper on the front there. And it says, it's a double present. So what do you win? So they were giving away 8-track portable players, 500 they were giving away. And people who bought the records in LP, they were able to win a little nipper ornament. Hence, you see nipper here. Okay, so you can get a little nipper ornament. You can find them all over the place in Japan. If you just bought an album, you got one of those for free. But you could also enter this lottery to win one of these 8-track portable players. Wow, I'd love to find one of those. So on the back here, you can just see there's all the spaces that you need to fill in with your name and address and your occupation and all that other personal information that people are very possessive about these days. So that was that one. And this one's really interesting. It came with that copy of Gold Records Volume 2 from 1962. So on the one side here, it's got 3 albums. You see it's got the Victor Records logo down here. And there's Elvis Gold Records Volume 2. It's also got a Neil Sedaka album and a Paul Anka album as well. And on the other side, it's got them all here again. Skiing, little skiing figures. And over here you can see a picture of people skiing and then a great big pair of skis here in the foreground. So this is a special offer insert. And it's telling you here that the offer was available from November the 5th to December the 20th, and you could win. This is another one of those lottery offers, and you could win a pair of these skis. And what's quite interesting about this is it calls these 3 Victor's Cleanup Trio, and they've used the English expression cleanup, Victor Cleanup Trio, Victor Cleanup Trio. Not sure what they're trying to get at there. But yeah, so you could send away to win a pair of skis. 100 sets of skis were available. And this was printed, or the deadline for this, the closing date was December the 23rd, 1962. So at the end of 1962, which is just the time when the album Gold Records Volume 2 was released. So pretty sure that this originally came with that album, but it would have been issued with other albums as well. It's just a generic special offer insert. So that was a good way for me to finish the year. Nice trip to Tokyo there. I won't be going again until April, when my work down there will restart in the spring. But probably next, I might have a go at doing an Elvis birthday video early next year, since it will be Elvis's 88th birthday on January the 8th, 2023. So I hope you'll join me for that. And in the meantime, I'll just say I hope you had a great Christmas and Happy New Year. All the best for 2023. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. Cheers. Take care.